Alabama football is the definition of excellence. The program has 18 national championships, they've won 929 games, and have made the postseason a record 73 times. Since Nick Saban has come around, they have become the best team in the country by far, are always ahead of the curve, and are very tough to bring down. It was no different in 2020, as led by Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, and Najee Harris. The Tide's offense was electric under Steve Sarkisian, and combining that with a stout defense, the Tide won the 2021 national championship. Things are looking good in Tuscaloosa. They reloaded with the #1 recruiting class in the country, and they have a ton of young stars ready to step up. Bama fans are optimistic going into 2021, but the big question is, will they be repeat champions? Well, in today's video, we're going to go through all of that, talk about Alabama's schedule, their roster, expectations for this season, and just everything Alabama football related. So without further ado, let's get started. We are first going to start out with our roster preview, and we will begin with the quarterback position. Mac Jones is one of the best players and one of the biggest surprises of the 2020 college football season, and he was recently a first-round draft pick to the New England Patriots. Many really did not expect him to have a career season with the Tide, and the guy who was supposed to start was true freshman Bryce Young. In case you don't know who that is, he was a former 5-star who originally pledged to USC, but flipped to Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. He was a top 10 recruit and expected to be the future of the program. He went 13 of 22 for 156 yards and 1 touchdown, which came against Kentucky, and showed some flash of what is yet to come for him. He showed out in the spring game and has basically locked up the starting quarterback job. Many people think he'll be a Heisman contender and already one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC, and while I will not doubt that, I'm tired of people ranking quarterbacks in their top 5 who have not even stepped foot on the field yet. Either way, Bryce Young will prove me wrong whether I like it or not, and he'll be one of the best quarterbacks in the country and probably a first-round pick in the coming years. So who are his backups? Well, you have Bear Bryant's great-grandson, and his name is Paul Tyson. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, and because of the Bama legacy, they were rooting for him to step on the field. Some said there would be a quarterback battle between him and Young, but I don't think it's going to happen, and while Tyson has looked good, has the intangibles, and I think could be a starter in the college football world, it's just not going to happen from at Alabama, and I do expect him to transfer in the next year. The other guy to watch out for is a freshman from Katy, Texas, by the name of Jalen Milroe. Originally, he was a Texas football commit under Tom Herman, but he decided to reopen his recruitment and would later flip from the Longhorns to the Crimson Tide. According to 24/7 Sports, Milroe was a 4-star recruit, the number 12 quarterback, and the 81st best player in the class of 2021. The reason why the Tide had to go get him is because their former pledge Drake May ended up flipping from them to North Carolina. 24/7 Sports compares him to Josh Dobbs, and after the Bryce Young era, I expect Milroe and Ty Simpson to battle it out. The running back group is one of the more fascinating position groups on the team, as they lose Najee Harris, who is their leading rusher over the last 2 years, and have multiple options to replace him in 2021. There are going to be 5 guys, and I'm excited. Keelan Robinson just transferred from Bama to Texas, and another one of their players entered the portal as well, so they have 5 scholarship backs. The first one is Brian Robinson Jr., who is a senior at this point, and is expected to win the starting job. Last year, he ran for 483 yards and 6 touchdowns, and is just a natural guy to take over the position. The other 4 guys are all very fascinating though. You have Trey Sanders, who is a former top 10 recruit, and someone who has struggled to get on the field because of injuries. He has all the talent in the world, was obviously the top player at his position in his class, and if he can put it all together, he could be a star. Some of the other guys have played sparingly so far, as you have Jace McClellan, who is a big-time recruit coming out of high school, and Roydell Williams, who is also a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. Out of those 2 guys, I believe one will transfer at the end of the day, as Williams has 1 touchdown in his career, and McClellan has 2. Finally, you have a late signee from the 2021 class, Kamar Wheaton, who is a 5-star recruit, the number 3 running back, and the 33rd best player in the class of 2021. While I do believe he is ultra talented, I don't think he is better than the other 4 guys on the roster, and especially does not have the experience to start right away, but watch out for his name in the future, as he is a top 500 recruit of all time. Alabama had some of the best wide receivers in school history come through the program, with guys such as Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. Going into 2021, they have 1 legitimate starter, but after that, there are a ton of guys fighting for the reps. The main guy back will be John Mechie, who could become a first-team All-SEC player, or even a first-team All-American if he puts it all together, and he will definitely lead this offense. In terms of the other guys who do come back, you have Javon Baker, Xavier Williams, Trayshawn Holden, Thigh Jones Bell, and Slade Bolden. I think all 5 of those guys will get a chance to see the field, but do not count out some of their newcomers. They brought in Ohio State transfer Jamison Williams, who is a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and was the 3rd or 4th option for Justin Fields last year. Saban rarely brings in transfers, so he must be good. Ja'Cory Brooks was a 5-star recruit coming out of the class of 2021, and he could play a lot as a freshman. Christian Leary is another guy who is blowing up, and Agaye Hall made one of the best catches we have ever seen and blew up over social media for that. I think all 3 of those guys have a shot to play, and also do not roll out JoJo Earl. I'm excited to see who out of this wide receiver bunch breaks out, and we all know they're going to have some great playmakers. If you go over to the tight end spot, there's really only 2 guys I want to spotlight, as Jaleel Billingsley is expected to break out, and everywhere I look, people are saying he could be the next great tight end to come out of Alabama, but don't forget about Cameron Latu, who was a big recruit on the defensive side of the ball, but switched to tight end and had a touchdown in the spring game, so I expect both of those guys to play and contribute a lot to the team. In terms of the Alabama offensive line, they have 2 extremely good starters coming back in Evan Neal and Emil Eklor, plus a couple other guys. True freshman J.C. Latham could see time at right tackle. At right guard, I expect it to be Tommy Brown, and the center position should either have Darren Dalcourt or Chris Owens. Other guys that could also play are Javion Cohen, Kendall Randolph, Pierce Quick, and one of the true freshmen Brokermeyer twins. The defense for Alabama should be really good, and one of the biggest impact playmakers will be a transfer from Tennessee by the name of Henry Tuoto. Guys like Malachi Moore, Jordan Battle, Josh Shobe, Jalen Armour Davis, Jalen Moody, Christian Harris, Christopher Allen, Will Anderson, DJ Dale, LeBrian Ray, Phil Mathis, Byron Young, and Tim Smith should all see the field, and there is so much depth at every position that pretty much any player could probably do well in this system, and I just don't have time to go through every single player. Now that we have talked about the roster, let's go ahead and preview the schedule and what I think will happen this year. As we all know, they open up in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game against the Miami Hurricanes. This game is a prime time matchup, and by some sources, Miami is a top 25 or even a top 15 team. They'll be led by a senior quarterback in D'Eriq King, but there are a lot of question marks about this Miami team that no one's really talking about. The defense looked terribly bad at times last year, especially against North Carolina, and I find it hard to believe that a Manny Diaz coach team will be more prepared than a Nick Saban coach team in week 1. Alabama obviously has the talent, the coaching, and the better players, so unless Miami can find a way to make this game close, get a couple takeaways, and have a couple plays go their way, I think Alabama should easily win this game. In week 2, they go back home and play Mercer, where that game will be an easy win. The first weird game of the season will happen as they will go on the road to Florida. Led by Emory Jones and Dan Mullen, the Gators have a ton of talent, but will the defense be good enough to keep them in this game? And will Emory Jones be good enough to keep them in this game? I think this is definitely a trap game for Alabama, and with it being in Gainesville, it could be close. I'm going to give this game to Alabama in a close one. From there, they'll go back home and beat Southern Miss, or they have a really fun game with Ole Miss. Last year, the Rebels gave them a test, and if this game was in Oxford, I would say it's a lot like that Florida game. While I think Ole Miss will hang in there with Matt Corral, I think Alabama will win at the end of the day, and Kiffin is not good enough to outcoach Saban just yet. After that, we have one of the more interesting games of the year, and a game that I think will change the season. They go on the road to Kyle Field to play Texas A&M, and if Haynes King is as good as advertised, I think A&M is going to pull this game off. There is going to be an upset of a major blue blood team, and I do believe that this is the best chance of it happening. A&M has a ton of talent, a ton of returning players, and Jimbo Fisher is a good coach. And while A&M has not been super competitive with the Tide over the last few years, I think with this game being at home, full capacity, and all their young players, I think A&M is going to pull it off in a close one. But if Haynes King is not looking that good at the beginning of the year, then I retract that pick and I will say Bama will win. From there, they go on the road to Mississippi State, and the only reason I can see this game being somewhat troubling for the Tide is Mike Leach, but I think Alabama wins. From there, they will easily beat Tennessee at home, and I think they will take care of LSU at home as well. New Mexico State should be a chance for the freshmen and the backups to get in, and the game against Arkansas could be close in the first half, but Alabama will win. The only other wildcard game left on the schedule is the Iron Bowl. Auburn always keeps it close, especially with Gus Malzahn at the helm, but he is no longer there, and we will see what Brian Harsin is made of. Either he will be a thorn in the side for Saban, or maybe finally Alabama will be able to take full control of the series and win. Either way, I do think they win this year, and depending on how A&M does, it'll either be the Aggies or the Tide in that SEC championship game. I think Alabama will go 11-1, and if they get in the playoff, they can easily win a game. A lot of Bama fans will come at me for saying A&M will win that game, but it's just a gut feeling I have, and it's not like A&M is some unranked team with no talent. We'll have to wait and see though. I think if Alabama gets to the playoff, Saban's coaching will definitely lead them to a win, and they could easily repeat as national champions. But if they mess up along the way against Miami, Florida, Mississippi State, or Auburn, things could get interesting for Nick Saban and the Tide in 2021. What do you guys think though? If you're a Bama fan, let me know what you think of the roster, your prediction for this year's record, anything I may have messed up on, and just your overall thoughts on this year's team. Be sure to let me know in the comment section, subscribe if you are new here, hit that like button if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about previewing Georgia. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.